All right, and we are back on day 6 here doing art lessons from home, but now we are switching gears to our secondary learners. So we just did an awesome lesson about Georgia O'Keeffe for our elementary learners. What I want to do for our secondary learners is cover portraiture and grid drawings, again using resources we have available at home. What we're going to do today is talk about different ways to practice portraiture, to practice facial features when we can't be at school. Today I am going to share a worksheet that I use with my high school learners. I love to use this one when I do my foundations of art lessons, introduction to art at the high school level, but these can also be adapted for middle schoolers as well. And today we're also going to do a lesson that I've seen done by a lot of middle school teachers, some high school teachers as like a refresher, and that's using grids to support our drawing. What this allows us to do is really focus on seeing what is actually there, and it really allows us to be mindful of where we fall. It really allows us to be mindful of the proportions. And it's a great practice tool, and most importantly, a lesson that doesn't require many materials at all. So we can create this one at home with very little materials at all. So the first thing I'm going to show you is something I'm sharing with you guys today. These packets here are ones that I would hand out to my high schoolers. Now these packets here cover all the different facial features. So we have the nose, we have the mouth and lips, we have the eyes and ears. And what I love about this packet is it just gives you some really simple, easy to follow directions. It also shows you right here facial proportions and shading. So I'm going to go ahead and share this with you. Last one right here is a view from the top of the face. So what I'm going to do, I've had this packet since my first year of teaching, and anytime I teach the foundations class, this one always makes its way to the surface. I'm going to go ahead and share this with you. I'll take some pictures of it and throw it in the comments so that you can go through, and if you want to try some of these exercises step by step, you are welcome to them. The next thing I'm going to show you is the lesson I want to cover with you today, and I was talking with you about portraiture and grid drawing. So with portraiture and grid drawing, what we are going to do is start by pulling a photo from a magazine. There's got to be magazines around your house all over the place. Go ahead and find one. I highly recommend a portrait that's more face on and symmetrical. So this one, there we go. This one of Drew Barrymore from CoverGirl, I think is a really good example because it's very easy to cut right down the middle. And what we're going to do is just that. We're going to grab our scissors. We're going to measure it out. We're going to cut it right down the middle. And then from there, as I pull this away, you can see we are going to draw the other half. So your challenge today, when we cut it right down the middle, now suddenly you have half of a magazine to reference. You have the other half over here, and you're going to try and recreate the other half using your shading skills, your line drawing skills, and also using this grid that I'm going to teach you about today. So once I cut it right down the middle, what I did is starting from the top, I worked my way down, and with my ruler, I started to measure out 1 inch squares. So if you look right here, I'm going to go ahead and put this up close. I went down, and every inch I just made a line all the way down horizontally, and then I also did that vertically. And what that does is it starts to create a grid on the magazine drawing. And then from there, for those of you who maybe need that extra step, what I like to do is I tell my students you can always add letters or numbers to help you to remember the rows. Especially when I was teaching in the classroom, which it's been a little while, unfortunately, I miss it. But when I'm in the classroom, what I'll say to students is things like, okay, I see where you were going, but let's take a look in B2 at the pinky line. And that way, instead of being like, hey, look at this square, I sometimes would use the numbers and the letters to kind of help me to guide what I'm covering with the kids and help them to kind of easily draw connections. So step 1 is to draw the grid on the magazine. And then from there, you're going to take this exact grid that's on the magazine, and you're going to do the same thing on your paper. So I took my glue stick and I glued down this half. And then from there on the other side, I started to create the grid. Now be very careful when you work that you start the grid from the same spot on both your magazine piece and your paper. So if you start measuring from the top, make sure you're measuring from the top on both sides, which is what I did here. So I started 1 inch, working my way down. And if you notice at the bottom, it's not exactly a full inch. So that's why it's important to start from the top so that it's the same on both of them. And what I did is I just did 1 inch down, 1 inch across, and I also labeled them A, B, C, D, and I labeled them with numbers on this side. Once you're done, your challenge is to start to match up those different parts and use the grid as a guide. And you can start to take a look at things like, where does the pinky start and finish? If you notice right here, when I'm looking at the pinky, right here, where does it cross? It crosses right at the intersection of the A and B lines. It crosses right at the intersection of the 1 and 2 lines. And making sure that when I translate it here, that my pinky ends right in that exact same spot. So you're able to use it as a guide to help with your line drawings. Now this is really good for practicing those skills. Sometimes, especially with middle schooler and high school learners, we struggle to see what's actually right in front of us. And using the grid allows us to really start to see, where are those proportions? Where do those things fall? And instead of trying to make guesses, the grid kind of helps us to see what's actually there. And as you continue to work, I encourage you to start to fill in those line drawings with the different shapes, using your magazine as a reference, transferring it into your paper. And then once you think you're really happy with how those shapes look, then you can start to erase the grid lines, let them go, and you can start to fill in with shading. Now, middle schoolers, high schoolers, we're all at different levels, but with shading, one of the big things I encourage you to do is start to think about the use of your pencil. Now, it's not necessarily about pushing harder, because when we push harder, we start to get really shiny lines, but layering with your pencil. So shading up, oh, there's a cat in the corner. Say hi, Bean. I have 3 cats in case you didn't know, so there's cats all over the place. It's okay. But starting with a light coat of shading, and then when you want it to be darker, just go over it with another light coat and build your layers with your pencil. So it's not about pressing harder and getting those shiny lines, but it's about building your layers. And if you notice in the bottom, I started to play around with the shading around the dress right here. Started to play around with the shading in the neck. And you can start to work your way up. And I haven't explored those textures yet in the glove, haven't explored the textures in the hair, but using shading, I can start to think about adding those darks and lights. So anyways, this is what I have for you guys. Middle schoolers, high schoolers, those of you who want a challenge, go find a magazine, pick an image, cut it right down the middle, glue one side to your paper, and using a grid, thanks James, I appreciate that. With the grid, you can start to measure out your paper, and then try this exercise. Try the line drawings, try to go for accuracy, and see what you get. This one is definitely a great practice lesson and can really help you with your skills. Just to recap, I will also share out the step-by-step instructions for the different features if you want to play around with those. Those are available to you as well. If you have any questions along the way about how to do the line drawings, how to do the grids, how to try portraiture, or how to shade, let me know. Like I said, high schoolers are my forte. Middle schoolers, all about it. So if you have any questions or need guidance along the way, send me a comment, send me a message. I'm happy to help you out there. And as always, if you guys have any questions about any of these lessons, if you have any requests, secondary students, if there's anything special you want to learn, don't hesitate to reach out. This is your challenge for today. Good luck. Happy creating. Stay safe. Make good choices. And I'll see you guys next time. Have a good day.